Hello all. In this session, we will discuss previous year questions from Civil Services exam, English Literature optional. Today we will discuss a question from the year 2020. The question is, discuss the ways in which King Lear explores the theme of power. The marks allotted is 20. So you should be able to write around 400 to 500 words. Let's discuss the answer. Shakespeare's play King Lear examines the theme of power and its effects on individuals and relationships. The play explores the destructive potential of power, presenting how power works when it is abused, misunderstood, or pursued without wisdom. Let's see some of the ways in which the play explores the theme of power. First, the kind of power. At the beginning of the play, King Lear decides to divide his kingdom among his three daughters based on their declarations of love. This decision sets the stage for the play's exploration of power and its corrupting influence. This decision reveals Lear's misunderstanding of power as something he can give away while still retaining authority. Lear's desire to retain the title and status of a king without the responsibilities reflects a misunderstanding of power's true nature. His decision is based on vanity and a desire for flattery, leading to tragic consequences. Once Goneril and Regan, his elder daughters, gain power, they quickly begin to undermine their father's authority. They steer of his followers and dignity, revealing the corrupting influence of power on both the one who relinquishes it and those who receive it. This power, now in the hands of the corrupt, leads to familial betrayal and political chaos. Lear's failure to see the distinction between the outward trappings of power and its true essence, rooted in responsibility and wisdom, marks the beginning of his tragic downfall. As the play progresses, it becomes clear that the unwise transfer of power can corrupt not only individuals but entire systems, leading to anarchy and suffering. Second, the illusion of power. Lear's renunciation of his throne is not just a political misstep but a personal one, because it triggers an identity crisis that reveals the illusory nature of his former power. Lear has spent his life believing that his authority and identity are inseparable, but once he relinquishes his power, he finds himself increasingly powerless and dependent. This realization dawns on him gradually as he begins to see that his daughters, especially Goneril and Regan, no longer respect or fear him. His famous question, "Who is it that can tell me who I am?" tells us how confused he is and the disintegration of sense of self. Lear's descent into madness is a sad commentary on how power can create a fragile illusion of control and self-worth. When stripped of his kingly title, Lear is forced to confront the reality that his power was not a reflection of his inherent worth, but rather the result of social structures and others' perceptions. This realization is devastating, leading to eventual madness as he grapples with the loss of his identity and the recognition of his. Third is the brutality of power. As soon as Lear relinquishes his power, Goneril and Regan seize control and begin to exercise their newfound authority with brutality and ruthlessness. Their treatment of Lear illustrates the dehumanizing effects of unchecked power. Once they have the upper hand, they quickly strip Lear of his remaining dignity, reducing his followers and eventually turning him out into the storm. Their actions demonstrate how power, when wielded without empathy or moral constraint, can lead to tyranny and cruelty. Regan's cold, calculating demeanor, in particular, highlights how power can corrupt individuals, making them insensitive to the suffering of others. The sisters' treatment of their father, once the most powerful man in the kingdom, underscores Clay's grim view of human nature when power is pursued for its own sake. This brutality is not limited to their treatment of Lear, it extends to others, such as Gloucester, whose eyes they pulled out in a shocking display of power's capacity for physical and psychological violence. Shakespeare uses these characters to show how power, when disconnected from justice and compassion, can lead to unimaginable cruelty. Fourth, the power of nature and fate. As Lear loses his authority and descends into madness, he finds himself exposed to the raw power of nature, which serves as a metaphor for the greater forces that govern human life. Stripped of his kingly status and abandoned by his daughters, Lear faces a brutal storm on the heath, where he begins to grapple with his own insignificance. The storm is more than just a physical manifestation of his inner turmoil. It represents the uncontrollable forces of nature and the fate that dwarf human power. In his madness, Lear rages against the storm, attempting to assert his will over nature. But ultimately, he must acknowledge his powerlessness in the face of these forces. This encounter with nature leads to a moment of profound humility as Lear begins to see himself as a poor, bare animal, no different from the humblest of his subjects. Shakespeare uses this moment to emphasize the limits of human power and the folly of those who believe they can control their own fate. The storm strips Lear of his illusions and forces him to confront the fundamental truths of existence. Fifth and finally, redemption and the power of love. Despite the overwhelming tragedy of King Lear, the play offers a glimpse of redemption through the character of Cordelia, Lear's youngest daughter. Unlike her sister, Cordelia's love for her father is genuine and selfless, and it is through her that the play explores the redemptive power of love. After being disowned by Lear for refusing to flatter him, Cordelia remains devoted to her father. Her return at the end of the play represents a counterpoint to the destructive power struggles that have consumed the other characters. When Lear is reunited with Cordelia, he experiences a moment of clarity and repentance, acknowledging his mistakes and the harm he has caused. Cordelia's compassion and forgiveness offer a chance at redemption, even as the play moves inexorably towards its tragic conclusion. Her love stands in stark contrast to the cruelty and ambition of her sisters, suggesting that true power lies not in domination or control, but in empathy, forgiveness, and the ability for self-sacrifice. Through Cordelia, Shakespeare shows that love has the power to heal even the deepest wounds and restore some measure of humanity to those who have lost their way. To conclude, King Lear portrays power as a double-edged sword, one that can uplift and destroy. The play's tragic trajectory underscores the dangers of misunderstanding or misusing power, while also offering glimpses of redemption through humility and love.